The first gay rights organization in the United States was founded in Chicago with the purpose to create a strong homosexual community and educate authorities and legislators about gay rights. Henry Gerber, along with six other men, applied on December 10, 1924, for a charter integrating the Society for Human Rights, an enterprise that was designed after German organizations. While serving with the army in Europe following World War I, Gerber had subscribed to German. The Society published two issues of its own newsletter, Friendship and Freedom, which were financed almost entirely by Henry Gerber. In 1925, police raided Gerber's home and arrested members of the Society for Human Rights. While the charges against Gerber were eventually dropped, he lost his job based on a newspaper account of the raid. This effectively ended the Society for Human Rights. Any other gay rights organization had not erupted for another 30 years. In the early 1950s, lesbians and gays created groups such as the Daughters of Bilitis and the Mattachine Society, which were also known as homophile organizations. These groups were active in Chicago by 1955. These organizations tried to secure the acceptance and understanding of lesbians and gay men through educational efforts. The Chicago chapter of the Mattachine Society took part in only a few political activities and mostly worked as a social group. However, in 1964, several gay men and lesbians, led by Robert Basker and attorney Pearl Hart, reconstructed an organization to become a more politically active group due to the rising, more frequent conflicts involving police harassment and gay bars. The new Mattachine Midwest monitored police harassment of gay bars, published a political newsletter, and by 1968 succeeded in securing ACLU support in defending gay men that are arrested by the police. This more activist-oriented Mattachine Midwest demonstrated an important and significant shift in how lesbians and gay men would organize politically. In June of 1970, the nation's first Pride Parade paid respect to the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall Riots.
In June of 1969, patrons and supporters of the Stonewall Inn in New York City arranged an outbreak to resist the police harassment and infliction that LGBT Americans had to often face. This outbreak illustrated the introduction of a movement to put an end to the discriminatory laws and practices against LGBT Americans. Henry Gerber said in a magazine in 1962, "The United States was in a misunderstanding concerning its sex laws, and no one was trying to unravel the tangle and bring relief to the abused. What was needed was a society," I concluded. My boss helped me write a declaration of purpose for our new Society for Human Rights, and the same name used by the homosexuals of Germany for their work. The beginning of all movements is necessarily small. I was able to gather together a half dozen of my friends, and the Society for Human Rights became an actuality. I then set about putting out the first issue of Friendship and Freedom. The Mattachine Society was a turning point for the gay liberation movement in the United States, because they had evolved their organization to educate America about gay rights in order to earn social acceptance. The founder of the first Mattachine Society was a man named Harry Hay. Harry Hay had been a member of the Communist Party for 18 years. Therefore, it was not known that he played a part in being the founding father of the American homosexual liberation movement. On March 31st of 1974, Jonathan Ned Katz had interviewed Henry Hay concerning the original documents of the time. Harry Hay had thought of the idea of a homosexual activist group in 1948. After he signed a petition for the Progressive Party presidential candidate Henry A. Wallace, Harry Hay spoke with other gay men at a party about creating a gay support organization. He called this Bachelors for Wallace. Due to the positive reactions, Hay produced the principles for the organization that night. The principles that he had created were made into a document that he referred to as the Call. But the next day, the men that had originally been eager to join the organization were not as enthusiastic. This allowed Hay to improve upon his idea for the following 2 years. By improving upon his ideas, his goal was to protect and improve the society's androgynous minority, wanting to name the group Bachelors Anonymous. On November 11, 1950, the day had finally come, where Henry Hay, his friends Gordon Reach, Dale Jennings, and lovers Bob Hull and Chuck Rowland had held the first meeting of the Mattachine Society. This had happened in Los Angeles, where they held their meeting under the name Society of Fools. During the same month, the group had changed its name to Mattachine Society, which was a name that Henry Gruber had suggested, and was chosen by Harry Hay after medieval French secret societies of masked men who were authorized to denounce ruling monarchs with dispensation. The central goals of the society included the unification of homosexuals, educating both homosexuals and heterosexuals in creating an unbiased culture, leading the more socially conscious homosexuals to provide leadership to the rest of society, and assisting gays who are victimized daily due to calamity. The Mattachine Society expanded rapidly across the nation. Membership grew to be assorted, with more women and people from a cultivated political spectrum becoming involved. From 1953 to 1966, the Mattachine Society became widely adequate as it published a magazine, gained relationships with allies in the fight for homosexual equality, and influenced public opinion on the views of homosexuality. The success of the Mattachine Society provided a lot for the gay rights movement. More and more people were becoming openly gay. People began to publicly celebrate their sexuality. Leaders and groups helped organize and create pride parades. The first pride parades that took place in June of 1970 became a catalyst for local organizations throughout the U.S. and across the globe. By the 1980s, most major U.S. cities had their own parades, and outside the U.S., pride parades have occurred in places such as Moscow, Tel Aviv, and Nepal. The groups that were affected by the actions of the Mattachine Society include the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community being positively affected from the first Pride Parade, because the parades for one city resembled their fight for equality, their fight for social acceptance. Also, with time, more and more people began to accept homosexuality, and homophobia began to decline. What changed short term as a result of the first Pride Parade was that homosexuals were getting together to take a stand against the discrimination and unfair treatment they had faced. What has changed long term is that the general view on homosexuals has changed drastically. Now, people are more comfortable with homosexuals. Less people view homosexuals negatively, and throughout America and the world, pride parades are celebrated each year in June, and June has also been declared LGBT Pride Month by President Obama. The effect of the first Pride parades on today is how they have greatly expanded throughout the United States and across the world. Today, Pride is shown through more than just parades, including marches, street fests, workshops, athletic events, and choral concerts. Thus, these events bring together millions of people across the world to bask in the pride and growing acceptance of the LGBT community.